This is Football Night in America, served by Applebee's.
All right, a lot of food consumed, a lot of hours of football watch for Sunday number 2 of the season. Mike Tirico with Tony Dungy, Mike Florio, and Rodney Harrison. A lot of offense in week 1, 90 touchdowns, a record for kickoff weekend. Half the teams in the league, 20 points or less in week 2. So the defenses get a bounce back. Big headline, guys, the injuries to the quarterbacks. Ben Roethlisberger hurt in Pittsburgh, Drew Brees in New Orleans. Which team of the two is better equipped to go forward if they're going to be without one of those guys for a while? Tony, I'll start with you.
I think they'll both struggle. The Steelers don't rely on Ben as much, but their defense has not been playing as well. The Saints, everything in that offense revolves around Drew Brees. I think that's going to be very difficult for them if he's out.
I think Sean Payton's a big part of that, though. And I think Sean Payton will draw up the plays, whether it's Teddy Bridgewater or Taysom Hill. They got two guys they can alternate. Mason Rudolph has got a long way to go to fill that void of Ben Roethlisberger, and he doesn't have that offensive-minded head coach who can create through just ingenuity and resourcefulness the kind of opportunities for the quarterbacks who are on the field. So I think the Saints will be better off
Mike,
without Brees.
I completely agree with you. I think the experience, backup quarterback experience, and Teddy Bridgewater, he went to a Pro Bowl. He has experience, but Sean Payton is the X factor. He's an offensive guru. He knows what to do with his quarterback, and I think he will draw up some plays that, allow Teddy Bridgewater to naturally do what he does best.
The Hill factor is interesting, too, because you can go a little bit of both and even a mix of both guys like they were doing with Brees.
I was surprised we didn't see Taysom Hill more today. When Drew is in there, he's still playing Taysom Hill 6, 7, 8 plays a game, playing him in the red zone. We didn't see Taysom at all.
But maybe what Sean Payton was trying to do is he wasn't trying to mess with Teddy Bridgewater's confidence. Once you start switching in and out, then all of a sudden, I'm not good enough. You can start questioning yourself. So I think that was a big part of it.
But if you go into it next week with a Taysom Hill package and everybody knows it going in, the defense every week is going to have to be ready for both guys.
Right.
Mike, it's interesting because Joshua Dobbs, who was the Tennessee quarterback, who was the Steelers' backup for a few years, did not make it through when they had to make the choice on 2 quarterbacks. We've already seen 4 or 5 quarterbacks get hurt, and so many teams are hanging on to just 2 quarterbacks. Very few have 3. Maybe that's something teams should start looking at a little bit differently going forward.
No question. It showed up tonight as Josh McCown had to come in for Philadelphia. He didn't have the whole training camp after Nate Sudfeld got hurt.
Yeah, so some interesting things to watch. All right, who's got question 2?
I have question 2, and it's a bad question for me. I'm glad you guys have an answer first. What's your opinion on how replay review is working so far?
I don't like it. We go over it all the time, Coach. We don't like it. I mean, it's one of those things you talked about as a coach, how it's very frustrating to you. You don't know when to challenge. As a player, it's very similar. I don't know how, players out there, they don't know how aggressive they can be, what they can do on the field, what they can't do. It's very frustrating for everyone, Mike.
Yeah, there was a sense after last week that Al Riveron, the senior VP of officiating, had been told that whatever he thought the bar was to throw a flag via the replay review process for offensive or defensive pass interference, and that bar was higher than he believed. But today we saw the Seahawks-Steelers play. That made it look like the bar wasn't as high as we now thought it was. So that bar keeps moving. The bar's got to be in one spot, and it's got to stay there all year long. So the coaches know when to throw the red flag. The players know what they can do. I think that's the key.
My problem with the whole thing is when we replay other situations, we just make a judgment on did it happen or didn't it. If the foot is on the line, it's out of bounds. If the ball hit the ground, it's incomplete.
The black and white stuff.
Black and white. Now we see things we all look at and say that's pass interference, but it doesn't get overturned. You've got to call it based on what happened. If it's pass interference, reverse the call. If you're going to have replay review for that, you got to get it right.
Just a couple of thoughts here. I have the biggest problem with the one in Green Bay against Minnesota because this rule was to clear up the clear and obvious stuff. And clear and obvious are the 1 yard down the field offensive pick plays, essentially. But now you have to call those on touchdowns because every touchdown gets reviewed, and you have to look at that. That's not what this rule was put in place for, and that's the one that they are weighing in on more than anything else.
That's the easiest one to spot.
I know.
Right? It is clear and obvious because he's more than a yard past the line of scrimmage, and he threw a block, and we've seen it multiple times.
But that's not what they wanted. Spirit of what they wanted to do.
And there was never a time where we would sit here after games and say, can you believe they didn't call a pick play? The guy was blocking more than a yard down the field. Nobody ever got upset about that, Rodney.
You guys said enough. I don't have anything else to say.
Let me just go back. Let me just go back to two other things on replay that I think are things that have been around for a while, but bigger problems. The New Orleans Saints had a touchdown taken away from them because the official could not see if it was a forward pass or a fumble by the Rams, and they needed all the offense they could get without Drew Brees. Usually the officials try not to officiate to replay, but they keep those plays alive and don't blow the whistle just in case. They miss the live call, and because of that, they can give the Saints the ball, but they can't get the touchdown. That's bad.
And that was just a mistake by the referee in that case. You were told, those referees are told, if there's a doubt, if it's a pass or fumble, you call it a fumble and we'll sort it out. Any doubt in your mind, you are only supposed to call that an incomplete pass if you definitely see the ball going forward. That was just an error on his part.
And it's much easier to do when we're sitting back and watching it on TV than the referee on the field. But we said live. I yelled out live in the room. That's an empty hand. That's a fumble. And you agreed and Chris Sims agreed. And one other point on replay, the Jacksonville-Houston game. There is not a straight look down the line on the two-point conversion for Leonard Fournette right at the front of the plane of the goal. If that is a Fox A game or a CBS A game, meaning for the folks who don't know the TV nerd stuff, a Buck and Aikman game, or a game where you get Jim Nantz and Tony Romo, or a Sunday night or a Monday night game, they have many more replay looks. You would have had a look right down the front of that pylon to see in or out on that two-point conversion. I don't think replay should be impacted by what level of TV coverage the game has. I think that's a flaw in the system that is there. The league's got to put its own cameras there and be in charge of them, not just take the TV feed.
And that's one of those where if you have common sense and you have any type of depth perception, you look at it and you say, Leonard Fournette got the ball across the goal line, at least touched the front end of it, and that's the two-pointer. But because you can't see it, they can't overturn it.
Yeah, they made the right call. But Bill Belichick a few years ago talked about the league should have their cameras in those spots down all those big, bright lines, back of the end zone, the front, and down the sidelines.
And I'll give you one other, since we're talking about problems with replay. We've seen it twice already. It's going to come up even more. You're reviewing for pass interference. The coach throws a challenge. We saw it in Carolina, Tampa. Well, the ball wasn't in the air yet, but he clearly contacted him. Should have been illegal contact, but we can't go into that because it's not under review. John Gruden challenged one pass interference today, and the ball wasn't in the air, but there was holding before the ball was in the air. Should have been a penalty, but we can't call it. That's going to be frustrating to people and coaches for sure.
All right, who's got magic number 3?
I've got number 3.
Right.
Which 2-0 team surprise, or let me try that again. Which surprise 2-0 team do you believe in more, the Buffalo Bills or the San Francisco 49ers?
I would say the San Francisco 49ers. Simple fact, they have weapons. George Kittle, he's one of the best tight ends in the league. They can run the football, and they have a quarterback that is starting to gain his confidence, Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, I agree with you. And Jimmy Garoppolo is still less than a year removed from the ACL tear from last year. Kyle Shanahan, the coach, told me after the game he still has a way to go to get to what he's capable of doing. He's very happy with where Garoppolo is now. I think he's only going to get better. And they're not in the AFC East.
Well, you can believe in Buffalo. They're not going to win the division, but I think they're going to be pretty good this year. Last year, their defense played well. They were struggling at quarterback. Josh Allen is making plays this year. They're running the ball really well.
Leslie Frazier is doing a good job.
They've won. Both teams have won 2 road games, and if you just said, "Hey, they're going to start out 2-0, being on the road," I'm surprised by both of them. But I like Buffalo.
Don't want to downgrade Buffalo because they beat the Jets and the Giants, who don't look like they're going to be big teams, and they won the MetLife Stadium season-long championship.
They get the Snoopy Trophy, right? They seize it from the
I like that. But I've got to go to San Francisco, a guy you know very well, Tony, John Lynch. They have built a nice team there, and you didn't see it because of the Garoppolo injury. You saw multiple quarterbacks last year. Garoppolo's, 10-2 or 10-3 as a starter now. Maybe not just because of him, because guys are getting open by formations, but they are executing it. They've got 70-some-odd points in their first 2 games.
And they've had a lot of injuries, too, at the running back position.
That's right.
They're putting up points.
So I guess it's my turn.
You got it.
Which 0-2 team could you see rebounding? The Bengals, the Panthers, the Jaguars, the Giants, Dolphins, Steelers, Redskins, or Broncos? Mike.
Wow. None of them? I don't know. I would say the Panthers ordinarily, but I watched that game on Thursday night. I don't know what's wrong with the Carolina Panthers. I guess I would have to say, of all those teams, maybe the Denver Broncos, just because I believe in Vic Fangio as a head coach, and it's going to take him time to get his system up to speed.
Do you believe in Joe Flacco?
No.
Okay.
So I don't believe in any of them then. They're all done.
Of that group, I'd say only the Steelers have a chance. If Ben can come back and be healthy and play, they can win enough games to make some noise. Everybody else, I think, is going to be a long season.
Send that list down. Let me just double check. I want to say the Panthers because I just felt with better execution they could have won that game. They had that game on a short week at home. They were a terrible week one.
They played pretty well.
Yeah, so I'm going to stick with the Panthers.
And with their division too, Mike.
They keep saying he's healthy. If he's healthy, then he just doesn't have it anymore.
Under 50% completions at home in a short week against Tampa, that just doesn't feel right. And the execution in the big spots, that has not been there. I agree with you. It's with trepidation, but I'll go Panthers. So, lightning round. These are quick answers to quick questions.
Okay.
Did you like Doug Marrone going for 2 in the Jacksonville game, trying to go for the win?
No, I hated it, Mike.
I liked it.
I like it on the road.
It showed real confidence in your team and saying, this is what we're all about. We're going after the win.
Your team over there, James Kaminsky, Matt Casey.
Why don't you like it?
Want to know why?
Because I didn't believe in the quarterback, and Leonard Fournette isn't very good. So I just say put it to overtime and see what happens.
Right.
But I like leaving the ball in the quarterback's hands if you're going for 2. You know, you're putting all the eggs in that one basket. Give Minshew a chance to run it or throw it. He can decide once he gets the ball. But I like going for it on the road. Get out of there. Don't go to overtime. Steal it and go home.
Not with that offense.
What's more likely, the Patriots go 16-0 or the Dolphins go 0-16?
I think Dolphins go 0-16 is more likely. It's going to be tough to go 16-0.
Yeah.
Dolphins will win a game, but they got to get going.
Agree.
Yeah, I agree too. I mean, and because they've been completely non-competitive. I mean, there's a theory making the rounds now that they're not tanking for Tua, they're tanking for Trevor Lawrence, the quarterback in Clemson.
How are you going to tank for somebody that's not even
2 years away?
I know, but Cleveland sort of did it. You get the first overall pick 2 straight years. You get Lawrence 2 years from now. You work on your offensive line next year in the draft. That's all.
Mike, don't pay attention to
this
conspiracy theory. I'm telling you, that's how he is.
I'm telling you, people are talking.
2-year Trevor tank is a long, long, long
Thank
wait.
you.
Do the Cowboys have a weakness?
Yes, I still think their defense, they play great when they're ahead. And I know Rod Marinelli, and that's how it's built, and they plan on being ahead a lot. Mm-hmm. But if you can run the ball and pound it right at them and wear them down, I think that defense, if it has to play a lot of plays, can still struggle.
We saw that in the playoffs last year. They couldn't stop the Rams and running the football. But, yeah, I agree with you, Coach. I think it's being able to stop the run consistently.
But offensively, they look very good.
Great.
Dak looks terrific.
And, you know, Jason Garrett's done a good job there as the head coach, but there's always that potential that we get into a close game, a big spot, a big decision's got to be made at the right time. And we've seen over the years, the record is out there of some mistakes, some bad decisions made. And that if that's your biggest weakness, then you're doing pretty well.
I'll give you a second to consider this on question 4. Who had the best win on Sunday? I will give it to Chicago. The way they came back to win that game. We're looking at 0-2 against Vic Fangio, the defensive coordinator. Their offense still hasn't put up a bunch of points, but the way they won that game, that will boost them, I think, with Pinheiro kicking the game-winning field goal.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Mike, because I think it ultimately saved their season. Mm-hmm. I mean, you think about Green Bay being 2-0, first place in the division, playing great defense, and Aaron Rodgers, he hasn't put up a lot of big numbers, and this offense eventually will get going.
How about your Detroit Lions? They're second place in the division. They pull off the win over the Chargers. That, you know, after they blew that game last week, it would have been so easy to just fall apart. And they merged with the tie last week. They get the win. They're 1-0-1. They're in second place in the NFC North.
And they have Philly and Kansas City coming up in back-to-back weeks, so they had to have that one.
Yeah, I don't know about best win, but biggest win for sure is Chicago. If you coming off a division title and you go to 0-2, that would have been very tough.
And the converse, we always end on a negative when Matt Casey puts these questions together. Who had the worst loss on Sunday?
Would you say the Steelers?
With the Roethlisberger injury, I'd say maybe not. I might say the Giants. I'd say the Giants at home.
Yeah.
28-14 to Buffalo. The booing with Eli Manning, it's just going to keep, at least if they could have gotten a win somewhere along the way here, it would keep the conversation down a little bit about when are we going to see Jones. But it started from halftime and just kept going throughout.
But why wait until they're eliminated from playoff contention? Why not throw Daniel Jones out there while he has a chance to maybe salvage the season? That's what I don't understand.
You think he's going to come in and salvage the season?
Not going to salvage
no, but at least give him a chance.
You might want to give him a chance.
Not going to.
They have no receivers. Another receiver got hurt. Sterling Shepard was in concussion protocol today. I mean, you have to just give it the benefit of the doubt a little bit.
I think it was a bad loss for the Vikings. I mean, down 21-0, and they should have taken the lead. They had too many unforced errors. They had even though we disagree with the use of replay review, the touchdown taken off the board, the Stephon Diggs taking his helmet off and making it a 48-yard extra point. Just too many mistakes when they could have come back and taken that game.
I'm going to go off script a little bit and say Cincinnati. Losing at home, huge, non-competitive in your second game to go 0-2. That's going to be tough.
After you felt pretty good about them week one. The game in Seattle, they had a great chance.
Played well out there,
and
maybe we got to go on. You play at home, and we're not even in the game.
Home opener in Cincinnati with 15,000 empty seats.
15,000,
it's going to get worse if they can't turn this around.
All right, there it is, week 2 in review. Fresh for you every Sunday night right here with Rodney, Tony, Mike, and Mike. Goodbye. Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.